about it. Y'all welcome Owen Weibel.
I feel like a superhero right now or something. Like, wow. Not as awesome as you just made me sound, but thank you. Here's what I want us to do. I want everyone to close your eyes for a moment. Don't fall asleep. I know you just had lunch. This is the worst idea I could do. But what I want you to do is I want you to picture where you want your church to be 3 to 5 years from now on a worship standpoint. I want you to think about how many people are involved. I want you to think about what's one systemic problem that's currently happening that you're thinking in 3 to 5 years won't be there. I want you to think about who's on your core team. I want you to put yourself in James Mark's shoes where he was today, where you're not even on the stage. You're looking up and this thing's running. You really had nothing to do with it. I just want you to think for a second. Yeah, you can open your eyes. I think it's really easy for us to get caught up in our current challenges, our current things that you're like, you don't understand. This one guy just drives me up the wall. And it's so easy to get so caught in what's urgent in the moment that we forget what's important for the future. And it's, you've seen like the 4 quadrants of these things are important but not urgent. These things are urgent but not important. These things are urgent and important. These things are neither urgent nor important. And I think it's really easy for us to get stuck in the category of this is so urgent. And this is the thing that right now I'm like totally panicking and totally freaking out because I don't know what to do and this is happening tomorrow. And it's so easy for us to look back and say, oh my gosh, I've spent the last year of my life looking at this is the only thing I can think about is what's urgent in this very moment. And we lose the things that are important for us to actually get to where we go, to where we want to be, to those dreams and those goals, those promises and those words that God's spoken. It's so easy for us to get stuck with, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to call my electric guitarist that I know can nail it, and I'm just going to have him come. And it's so easy to say, shoot, like I didn't really think this through, so I'll just lead worship for this because I know that it'll be fine. And so I know that way it's like, because I wasn't able to like fully think it through and fully develop it, that it'll just be easier for me to take it. And it's easy for us to get stuck in this cycle and stuck in this rut of, oh my gosh, I didn't figure this out, so I'm just going to take this on, or I'm just going to call my default drummer because I know he or she is going to just knock it out of the park and it'll be fine, and I don't have to think, and I don't have to worry, and I don't have to put in this extra things that I don't have time for, I don't have the energy for, I don't have the language and how to say, actually, I really need you to do this. But I don't really know what this is. I just don't need you to do this, please, ever again. But we can't have that conversation because we don't know how to say, not this, but this. And it's so easy for us to get so overwhelmed with our jobs, so overwhelmed and so stuck in that next week is Sunday. Next week is Sunday. We've got Sunday again this week. I've got Sunday again this week. We've got a college service this week. Oh man, why did they plan a retreat this week? Why didn't they tell me? And it's so easy to get stuck in what's happening tomorrow, what's happening this weekend, what's happening next week, that we aren't able to see where do we want to be in 3 years? Where do we want to be in 5 years? And I want to encourage you that, like James Mark was saying, the kingdom of God is advancing. People are desperate and hungry for the presence of God. It's not like people aren't called to be worship leaders. It's not like people aren't called to lead people into the presence of God. They just don't know. They haven't had someone come up and say, you have a gifting on your life. You have an anointing on your life. You are called to be a worship leader. You are called to, and that's our job as worship pastors. And that's our job as people who have been given this amazing and overwhelming task of seeing the kingdom of God advanced in our nation and in our cities. And I just want to encourage you, it's not bad, it's not wrong to live in the week to week, but you're never going to get to see the fullness of what God created you for, what God created the church to really be, until we get out of this cycle of, I can only think through tomorrow. I can only think through what's going to happen this weekend. And so I want you, it takes discipline to consistently remind yourself, this is where I want to be. You know, I think about Antioch Indy. They've had 3 services. Can you imagine where they're going to be in 5 years? It's hard to think right now. All I can think is like, we don't even have anything but a guitar, a cajon, and like 4 singers, you know? And so it's easy to be like, in 3 years, if we just have a bassist, that would be awesome, you know? And I just want to challenge you to dream big and think big, and not for the sake of like, we're the next Hillsong, y'all. You know, like, we're not trying to be this thing so that we get fame and we get glory, but the kingdom of God is moving forward, and the world desperately, desperately, desperately needs people who are going to say, I am going to bring you in so that you can flourish and you can thrive in how God's created you to be. And so I just want to challenge us to get out of the mindset of, what can I do today? And I think it's, like James Mark was saying, it's so easy to come in here and look at Antioch Waco and be like, oh, y'all have everything, and you have like 7 drummers, and like, if I could only have 1 drummer, that would be awesome. And it's easy to like compare and think like, oh, they're doing this or they're doing that, but we're still in the same place of like, where do we want to be and where do we want to grow? And honestly, I'm looking back to like when I first started, our church was half the size that it currently is. Our volunteer team was like a fourth the size that it currently was. And we started to say like, where do we want to be and what are we trying to do and where are we trying to go? And just tried to move past the fact that, you know, when somebody went on vacation, we were pretty much doomed, and we were calling like some random person's mom to like, please, please, please come and sing, and you know, and so I just want to encourage you that just first and foremost over all of this, just to think, where am I going? What am I doing? And I see now the fruit of what we started doing 5 years ago, and honestly, I'm not seeing the fruit until now. It's literally been 5 years of hard work and honestly some like awful, painful conversations and challenging things and conflict, and James Mark and I really disagreeing on different things, and me being so sold that my idea was right and him being so sold that his idea was right, and us having to work through, what does this mean and how do we do that and how do we move forward, and trying to then convince some of our core volunteers like, hey, we need you to be doing these things too. And it's not just James Mark and I think this is a good idea, but I need you to not just listen, but I need you to then be telling other people. And I literally is, it's funny that James Mark said that, as I just was thinking like, you know, it's what we have here is special and what we have here is rich, but it's because of labors of painful conversation and of on my day off getting coffee with somebody and stopping somebody who was on their way to their car to be like, hey, can we have a quick, not so quick conversation? And that like dreaded phone call that you're like, I just like, please, just somebody else can just call this girl, and like, it would just make my life so much easier if I could do that. And so I just want us to throw off the poverty mindset of like, I can only have like this one singer, and like, if only I could just get a drummer who could play to a metronome, like all problems would be solved. Like, why not say if only we had 4 drummers who could play to a metronome, all our problems would be solved? Why not? You know, like, I just want us to start to think bigger, not for the sake of this like grandiose, like, we're blessed because we're in the kingdom of God, but to say that our churches need it and our nation needs powerful worship and our people need to be empowered to do what God's called them to do. And so, what I want, what I think in this place, if you're looking and you're like, I know right now I'm living in the week to week, I'm living in the like, I can only see through October 9th, which is this Sunday, and I can't see past that. But I want to challenge you to get a picture of this is where we want to go and to start to think that way. Because then when you start to create systems and you create ideas and you start scheduling people and you get to those conflicts where it's like, oh, like I know this set is going to be hard because we've got this drummer and this bassist playing. That it's going to be worth it when you think in 2 and 3 years, like these people are rock solid and they're awesome. Rather than just saying it's going to be easier for me to just call my drummer that I know is going to nail it, to call my bassist that I know is going to be fine. I don't have to tell them what to do. I can literally say, here's the 4 songs. We literally don't even have to rehearse and we just go straight in and nail it. And that's the dream. And that's like, oh, wouldn't life be so great? But I just want to challenge us. Then we're not even doing a job. Like we're not doing anything. We're just, God's called us to create and to build. And there's something beautiful about getting to do that with him that creates that intimacy with him. And that's part of the joy of what we get to do as pastors and what we get to do as worship leaders is walk with God through the trial and through the rough conversations and the challenges to then get to this beautiful thing where we're just like, what is going on? And who are these people that are volunteering with us? Like, we don't even know these people's names and they're in our doors and working with us. And so the first thing that I think is super important is just to start to think, what are our standards and what are our values? And I want to encourage you 2 things. 1, don't be unrealistic. So don't say like, our standard is we will never mess up ever. And we will, if you, I don't know, I can't think of anything ridiculous right now, but be realistic with where you are. So don't try to pretend like you are, a 5,000 person church with 6 electric guitarists in your bench. Just waiting to be called. Don't create a system that's not sustainable, but I want you to think, what are the things that I care about and what are the things that I want our volunteers to possess? And so for us, we've been in the process, and I say in the process because we still are working on this and still are landing, of trying to put good language to what are we asking of all of our drummers? What are we asking of all of our bassists? What are we asking of all of our electric guitarists? What do we want from all of our keys players? What are we looking for from someone on the front line? And being able to say to somebody, hey, when you come in, so we've gotten a lot very clear for our front line. We've worked very hard in the past 2 years to say, what are we asking from people? And so that we can clearly communicate, hey, this is what you're shooting for, because then it gives someone a target. This is what I'm hitting. This is what I'm going after, rather than just like, you just need to get better. And they're like, okay, like, thanks. Like, can you just be more like him or more like her? And then rather than helping people improve, we're just comparing. And we're saying, hey, your value is compared to this person here. And because you're not here, then sorry. And we're already giving a doorway for the enemy to come in and say, like, you're worthless and you're not valuable. And so what we're really, really trying to do is try to put language as much as possible to what are we asking of people. So I'm just going to give you the 3 things that we ask from our front line. You don't have to take these, but you should because these are awesome. These are the 3 things that we're consistently giving feedback to. 1 is musicality. If you can't sing in tune, please don't sing on our stage right now. So we're asking people, hey, literally, y'all, I had someone audition in June. That was maybe the most painful audition I've ever been through. Could not sing on pitch to save his life. But was like, I really want to be able to lead worship for my life group. That was his goal. Not like Sunday, not even like the elementary service in our church. I just want to lead for my life groups. I'm like, okay, like you don't have to audition for that, but I'm glad I just saved your life group from having you lead right now. And so I was like, here's what I want you to do. Because he literally could not match a pitch. I was like, I want you to download this free piano app on your phone. And I want you to press the button and go, hear the note, and then sing it. And I sent him home for 2 weeks, and he came back, and I was like, okay, dude, you're getting better. So then I started doing scales with him. couldn't do it to save his life. So he could match one note, but then as soon as he had to move from a note to another note, he was gone. So I'm like, oh my gosh. But I felt like God was like, you need to like stick it out, which normally I would just be like, hey dude, not your thing. But I really felt like God was like, no, like you need to like honor him, give him the time, which I don't think by being honest with people that they're not musicians is not dishonoring. I think that can be the most honoring thing to let people know that. But I really felt like God was like, you need to stick it out with this guy. And so I literally had 3 lessons with him. And I mean, bless his life group, I guess. I don't know like if he is leading or isn't leading for his life group. But that was the first thing of like, hey dude, like I can't even give you feedback on these other things just because I still need you to match pitch. And so he's not currently leading on our stage because he can't currently match pitch. So that's our first standard. Second standard for us is your countenance. So that's how do you look? How is your body language? How is your face when you're on stage? If you're standing there and you're like, shout, shout, oh, we are free now. You know, it's like you're singing, but you're not actually like leading anybody in worship, and you look scared, and if you look scared, they're all going to feel really scared, and if you look uncomfortable, they're all going to feel really uncomfortable, and people are looking for you to feel comfortable and feel at ease and feel like you can be yourself. And this isn't for us a make or break of in the sense of we'll let someone on the team, but we'll say, hey dude, we really want you to grow in this. We want you to find out, what does this mean for you? So, you know, like a great example is Johanna Six and I are very different personalities. In case you didn't know, she's very outgoing and I'm very shy. And so, JK, Johanna's more reserved and I'm more obnoxious. So, but a lot of the conversation that we would say is like, what does this look like for Johanna? Like, don't be Claire, don't be Owen, don't be Steven. What is Johanna's version of this? And help people get to, what does this look like for you to be expressive? What does this look like for you to be dynamic and engaging on stage and not feel like I have to like do the giant air clap that Claire does that her hands actually never touch by like 2 feet. You know, that's just not going to be Johanna's thing. But we need you to still, like, at least look up and, like, look horizontal instead of down, you know. We had a girl who came in who had been leading for years at a very large church in another city, and we knew that she was very just, like, still and deadpan. Not deadpan, like, what, anyway. We knew, like, this is going to be a stretch for you, and this is going to be different. And so she came recommended from someone on our team and had an amazing voice, a very gifted leader. And we said, hey, I think that you're actually going to have to work on this, which was a risk. She was, like, early 30s, been leading for, like, 9 years, and, like, at her old church was the girl singer. And so for her to step into our church and us to say, like, hey, I really want you to grow in this. For us, it could have just been like, she's a great leader. Let's just leave her and let her lead. But we knew we care that our worship is expressive. We care that we communicate these biblical principles of shouting and clapping and lifting our hands and jumping. And so we said, hey, so-and-so, I think you're going to actually have to work on this a little bit. We still want you to lead with us, but know that we're going to give you feedback and we're going to talk and dialogue. What does this look like for you and how can you grow in this? So that's our second thing. Our third thing that we do is leadership. So we're giving feedback on musicality, we're giving feedback on countenance, and we're giving feedback on leadership. And the thing that I've been more and more convinced of that we're really pushing people towards is you can be a great singer and a very mediocre leader and be okay, or you can be an amazing leader and a mediocre singer and people will follow you. And so that's one of the things that we've really, really pushed people. Honestly, there's a girl in our college, there's a girl in our, just get out of here. There's a girl in our college ministry who is, like literally, I think has one of the best voices at our church. She's amazing, amazing voice. But and looks gorgeous on stage, just like so happy, so easy to follow, but will not say a word. Doesn't say anything, doesn't cue anything. And I'm like, does she get people? Like, she's very like engaging, but I don't know that she gets it. And so I've had like literally this conversation with her. Hey, so-and-so, you're about to lead the song Wake. What I want you to do, and she's going to like look amazing, she's going to sound amazing leading it, but what I want you to do is I want you to say, we're going to worship Jesus together. Let's all clap our hands. So I say, like, I want you to say something like this. Literally, she says word for word, we're going to worship Jesus. Good morning, Antioch. Yeah. Good morning, night, whatever. No, it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear. So she literally says word for word, good morning, or what, now I lost what I told her to say. We're going to worship Jesus. Let's all clap our hands, word for word. And I was like, way to go. Like, you did it. And 3 weeks ago, she led worship on Sunday with us. And she said something right before we started singing. She like sang through, she said like come on, like sing it out or something like that. She said right before the verse, let's all lift our hands together and sing. And I was like, literally a year and a half ago, I was wondering like, does this girl get people? Like, does she get what it's like? And now it's like, I would trust this girl to like lead a set. I would trust her to lead any room of people and kill it and nail it. But we had to step in and say like, hey, so-and-so, like, you got an amazing voice, you look great on stage, but you're not calling people into worship and you're not engaging people. And so we really do try to say, how are you doing in your musicality, first and foremost? And these are like 1, 2, and 3. If you don't have musicality, don't come back if you can't sing on pitch. And then from there, let's get you engaging. Let's get people with you and connecting with you on stage. And then I want you calling and actually leading the people somewhere and giving the people something that you're after. So that's an example. I would say for us, our front line is our clearest of where we are. We are getting a lot clearer on our back line. But the main thing is, if we can say, these are clear standards that we're setting, these are clear things that we're calling people to, that then they can in turn say, I can rise to that and I can do that. But if we're just saying the like, hey, like, yeah, you know, it was fine, it was good, then we're actually just shooting ourselves in the foot, because then they're just thinking like, I rule. And really, I'm like, please, if you never played with us again, it would be great. Because it's easier in the moment for me to be like, way to go, buddy, you know, than to actually have the conversation to say like, actually, dude, this was really awesome, but I really want you to work on this for next time. And it's scary and it's vulnerable and you feel like, oh my gosh, can I put myself out there and say that? But people are looking for a high standard. That's the thing. People want to know, what's it going to take for me to get to my peak? And people feel, when they know they're believed in, and when they know, we were talking about this yesterday when I had all our volunteer guys out there. But when people know you're on my team, you believe in me, and you're with me in this, then you can say whatever you want. Literally, you can say whatever you want. I remember we had a guy come in our doors who it was his first Sunday to sing, and we played the audio for him, and it was like really pitchy. It was really, really bad. And he walked in to my office. I had texted him like, hey, can we talk this week after sending the audio? And he's like, oh no, like I'm totally getting fired. And I just said like, hey dude, what'd you think? And he was like, it was so bad. And I was like, it kind of was, wasn't it? You know, like, and we're good friends, so I could be more blunt with him than others. But I was like, okay, so what are we going to do to help you grow in this? And what are we going to do to help you get better? And he's one of our consistent Sunday leaders now. And he still has things to work on, and he still has things to grow. But just that simple conversation of the language of what can we do to work on this, rather than what are you going to do to get better? But to say, how are we doing this together? And again, it's easy to just say like, well, let's just tell Nolan, Claire, and Johanna to stop loving God in other churches and come back to Waco, and then our lives will be so easy because we can do it. But it's amazing to look, when they left, it was amazing to see the people who came in, and I was like, well, where have you been this whole time? Like, they were there, and it took me losing some of my, like, literally, like, crying, like, no, Lord, no, 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 like, why, God, you know, literal tears. Why are you doing this to us? To all of a sudden, Arden Beckham, I'm like, where the heck did you come from? Like, you're this random college girl who, like, had a cool sound to your voice, but, like, wasn't a leader at all. And our two main girl singers leave, and I was like, hey, Arden, like, this is you. If like, we don't have anyone who's a dynamic leader right now that's really taking our church, and will you take it and run with it? And she took it and was like, okay, and is an incredible leader, an amazing leader of people, and someone we lean on really heavily. But it took us, honestly, it took us losing all of our core leaders. Thanks for nothing. For us to get these people, involved. And, so I just want to encourage you to create what are your standards and what are your values. And then what I want to encourage you to do is look for every opportunity to interject those things. So for me, that starts when I'm auditioning people. The first meeting that I sit down and tell them, these are the things that we're committed to here. If you're not in a relationship with Jesus, let's talk, and that's different for different churches of where's the standard in that and what's that look like. And so that's up to you and your senior pastor of what that needs to look like. But for us, you need to, if you're standing in front of 2,000 people on a Sunday morning, we need you to really walk in with God. The second thing is we want them involved in a life group. Again, these are just our things of, if you're not involved in a life group, you're not involved in life-giving community. You're not involved in accountability. And you're not responsible to and for other people. And so for us, that's a must. If they're not involved in life group, then I'm not scheduling them to even sing at our elementary service, because I have to know these people are standing up in front of people. I need to know they're living lives of integrity. I need to know that. The third thing is we make team night, what we had last night. We say, hey, if you're going to lead with us, you have to be at team night. This is just a standard for us, and this is saying family is important to us. This isn't just like, I'm going to come do my gig, I'm going to play my bass, unplug, and peace out, but I'm committed to family, and I'm committed to this church and this movement. And so many people are just used to like, I'm going to do my gig, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to peace out. But what we're inviting them into is church. We're inviting them into family. We're inviting them into the kingdom of God. And so I'm saying like, hey, I know that you have a test tomorrow, and I know that it's a busy season, and I know there's a lot, but I really want you here. And we communicated, I literally had this conversation last month in September. Hey, actually, we sent this date out a couple months ago, so did what you have planned tonight happen before that was scheduled? And then they're like the squirm, like, no, it wasn't. And I didn't want to say that. What a jerk. Like nobody wants to be told that. But at the same time, they committed to this and they want to be involved in this. And they left and were like, I'm so glad I came. I'm so glad I was here. And I knew if we're building a culture of family and if we're going to get bigger, people don't know each other. And there's going to become this like cool club over here and then all these other people that aren't in the club. And so I'm pushing for, dude, you have to be here, especially if you're one of my core people. Don't give me, you've got something else going on. I have to have you here. And don't go talk to your best friend who you play with every Sunday, but go find the random girl who just started singing in the elementary service and pull her in and invite her. And so I'm constantly, say that. The last thing I'm communicating with people is that you're committed to excellence, which basically means you're willing to receive feedback and willing to learn. That is a huge, huge, huge value for us that honestly, I would say if you could instill anything in your people, instill the willingness to learn and receive feedback, because if people are willing to do that, people will rise way higher than you thought that they can go and thought that they can go. And it's hard and it's challenging and it's the hardest part of leadership because it's a billion conversations with people. As many people as you have is as many conversations as you have to have. So be blessed that you only have 6 people in your worship ministry right now, because I have 90 and that's a lot of people I have to talk to. But really, what? I am so shy. It's so uncomfortable for me. But I think what James Mark said is so right. It's people. It comes down to it's people and it's conversations. I can think of so many conversations of people that now we would look at and be like, wow, like they're so amazing and they're like the most like, if only we had a Thomas, if only we had a Claire, if only we had an Arden, if only we had a Moses Chan, that I'm like, yeah, but if only you had seen them when they started playing with us, then you would know you have a bunch of those people in your church. You just haven't had the really hard conversations to say, hey, about this. So I just want to encourage you, I got sidetracked a little bit, but just that from auditioning, the first point that I'm saying, these are our values. These are the things we're going for. These are the things that we're saying, we want you doing this. And then I'm reinforcing it at rehearsal. I'm reinforcing it at team night. I'm reinforcing it by having feedback with people and saying like, hey, let's talk about Sunday. How did you think it went? And they're like, yeah, it wasn't my best. And you're like, tell me about it. Like, what would you do differently? What would you grow? What would you change? And they would be like, well, I just didn't come prepared. I didn't know my parts at all. And I'm like, yeah, you really didn't. But it's okay. Next week, here's what I want you to do. Here's the set for next week. I want you to come prepared. And they'll be like, okay. And then they don't come back prepared. And I'm like, okay, we talked about this last week. What's up? And I've already set myself up because my first time I talked to them, I said, I want you to be willing to grow, willing to receive feedback. And so now I'm coming in and saying like, hey buddy, like you still didn't come to rehearsal knowing your parts. Or worse, you still didn't come to Sunday after we had rehearsal knowing your parts. And we had a whole rehearsal and days after. And now we're here and you still have no idea what you're supposed to play. And so I just want to encourage us as leaders step into that void. We're not waiting for them to come and be like, would you please give me some feedback? Which don't we wish all of our volunteers would say that? Gosh, it would make our lives so much easier. But they're not. And so our job as leaders is to step into the void and to say, this is where you are, but this is where you could be. Don't you want to be here? And not say like, hey dude, why the heck aren't you coming prepared? Or why are you always this? Why do you always do that? But to say like, dude, you could be here. Why are you settling for this? Why are you settling for not coming prepared? Because you're an amazing electric guitarist. And if you literally put 5 minutes of work into it, you could be here and you could be awesome. And I just want to encourage you, it's worth the conversations. That's what I hope you take away from this, is it's worth the conversations. It's worth the discomfort. It's worth the like nagging, like, I don't know, like, are they going to hate? Like, gosh, how many times have I thought, I'm going to leave this conversation and this person is going to be so mad at me. And my thing is, that's the problem with the woos, is we want to be liked and we want to like everyone to love us and think we're the best, because we are. And so there's this like, oh, if I tell this person, then they're going to be so mad at me and then they're like not going to trust me. And it's the total opposite. They're going to be like, thank you. Finally, someone had the guts to say, here's what you can do to get better. Finally, someone had the foresight to see, don't you want to be this? Don't you want to be this person? Don't you want to be the one on? I'm like, I tell people, dude, you could play Next World Mandate. I've told people that before. I'm not promising that they're going to play World Mandate, but I tell people, dude, you could play one of our next conferences. And they're like, you really think so? I'm like, totally, you have that in you. And the fact that I simply said that, and I didn't say, but you need to do this, this, and this, is they felt like, oh yeah, he believes in me. And then I'm able to step in and say, hey, but what you need to do in order to be able to play this conference is I want you to work on this. I remember I was just telling the guys at the World Mandate lunch, the first time Thomas Wilson played with us, he was a freshman in college, and we couldn't get him to actually play the same part twice. So it would be like he would rehearse something, and the next time we rehearse it, he'd play something totally different. And we'd be like, Thomas, like, come on, dude, what are we supposed to do, you know? And so I remember sitting, it wasn't me, it was James Mark. James Mark sat him down and was like, hey, dude, we really want you to play this conference, but we don't feel like you can do it until you can master this. So if you master this, we think that you would kill at this conference. And he's like the best electric guitarist that we've seen come through this church, and he's amazing. And it's because we were willing to have the conversation to say, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to take this next step. And I just sort of encourage us just to step out in faith, trusting that God's going to work through their heart. God's going to work through their emotions. And that's why I'm making them be in life group, so then they can go cry on Tuesday night on someone else's couch. And just kidding. I'll pastor them through it, hopefully. And then the last thing just that I want to share is once you have these things, once you have these values, once you have these expectations and these things that we're looking for, is to start to have who's your core team and how can I get them to communicate these things? Because if I can get this person to tell that person, this person's going to own it 10 times more than they already do, because now they're saying, oh shoot, I have to tell this person to do it, but I'm not actually doing it 100%. And this person isn't paid to do this. This person's just here like, hey, I love worship. So when Thomas tells one of my electric guitarists, like, hey, dude, quit playing during sound check. Like, let her sing because he's just over here having the best time in the world. Then I know, we're getting some amens. It's a real thing, y'all. What's wrong with electric guitarists? I don't know. Like, their fingers do not stop. But when it comes from him, it's a peer. It's someone who's not obligated to do it, and that's when you have a worship culture. When it's not just me saying, like, you need to do this. Come on, guys, this is what we do. But I've got this person who's not even paid to be here. They just showed up, and they got off work early so they could run over to rehearsal, and then they're telling her, hey, I noticed you're 5 minutes late. Like, what happened? Can you get here early next time? Or like, hey, it seems like you're not really paying attention at all during rehearsal. Like, come on, can we like stay engaged here a little bit? Or make an effort, Claire. Or, you know, just those things of, or, hey, this isn't cool that you post this on your Instagram. That is a real conversation, y'all. Prayers. I have to have that conversation this week. But just, I think that's the thing is you want to get to not just am I being the one who's carrying and communicating these things, but starting to get who are my core people who are doing this? Who are the ones who can say, this is what we are about. This is what we are doing. And that's when you move from one person who's a worship leader to a worship culture and a team and a church that says, wow, there's such rich worship here. And there's this culture of worship. What is it? And it's like, oh, it's not just because Owen says that I'm supposed to do this or James Mark says I'm supposed to do this. But Arden is so in and Thomas is so in and Laura Stafford is so in. And it's all these people who I'm like, man, I wish you could have seen their first day, but it was those conversations over and over and the feedback and the encouragement and the say like, I'm just going to push you out there and you just do it because you need to take a risk. And it's those things where then we see people start to be like, oh, and be able to really latch onto it and run with it. And so, did I have one other thing I wanted to say? So I guess the last thing is just, I just want to encourage you just again to picture where are we going? What's the long term? Where are we trying to get to? And how can I move out of my survival mode right now and into, the thing is, when you have the long term of the 3 to 5 years, that one Sunday that's a wreck is worth it for the long term. Because you can see the greater picture of like, I know it kind of fell apart, and don't like purposefully do bad things, but like still lead with strength and still do things that are smart and wise. And all of your senior pastors are going to be like, why did you tell them to do all these terrible things? But it's going to be worth it when you take the risk on someone and it doesn't work the first time or the second or the third. And someone comes and they're like, hey, why is so-and-so on the stage? And I'm like, I know. And it's worth that conversation because I see the potential in this person and I know where they can be. And it's worth, literally had one of our elders come up to me, someone who's been on our stage for months, and say like, hey, every time this person sings, I kind of cringe. And I'm like, no, like, don't tell me that. What do I do? But I was able to say like, hey, I totally understand. Here's what we see in this person. Here's what we're going for. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. I see that. Great. And is able to get behind my vision, but it's because I'm not looking to what's this one Sunday going to be, and is it worth it for me to take a little dip in the offering to go back up for ministry time? It's totally worth it so that this person gets that opportunity to risk, to fall flat on their face, and don't do it on your biggest Sunday, but give people the opportunities to do that because we're looking further down the road to say, where do I want to be? Where am I wanting to go? And I'm going to take the risks and going to do the things so that people can get there. So that's my hope, is that we don't get stuck in today, but we're able to plan for the future. And if you have specific, like, what does this mean for my context? Or like, this is my specific scenario. This is like one of my favorite things, is helping people create systems, processes, and things in place to help them move forward. So I would love to dialogue with you on that. If you have like, this is my specific church context and we're stuck, can you help us get out of that? I would be so thrilled to talk with you about that. So if you have that, please don't be afraid to come up with me. Come up with me? Just come up with me to the mountain. So with all that being said, take a 7.5 minute break.